Good morning and happy Saturday, everybody. Joseph from Noteful here, and looking forward to have a great TOEFL writing class together. What we're going to do is we're going to cover both question one and question two. So we're going to give our classmates a little time to come in. Want to say once more to everybody, good morning. So first, let me welcome you and explain what we're going to do today. So we got a couple of things to cover. The first thing that we're going to do is I want this to be just like a full, powerful class. So we're going to center ourselves as usual, right? Make sure that we're in the right mindset together. The next thing, going to do a little bit of a survey to make sure I understand where we're all coming from. Then we're going to go over writing question number one, just the basics, so that those of you who are new and those of you who need a little bit of a review. We're going to go over all the important parts that we need to succeed. Then we're going to go and review a writing question one essay. So, a lot of times in these lives, I like to practice a question, see what you produce. But I thought it would be really good to look at an essay, to not know the question, and to just read the essay and understand, does it explain clearly to you? Because what I notice is that when we write an essay and review an essay that you completed, there's a lot of things in your head that you remember. And it can be hard to recognize that, oh, that essay isn't so clear because it doesn't make the connections necessary between sentences. So when you read an essay and you're not really too familiar about the question the essay was about, it really makes you look at the essay and say, can I understand it? Does it make sense to me? And that's really going to be what's going to help you see how to write better. So I think it's going to be fun, interesting, and a little bit different. Then we're going to go over TOEFL writing question number two, the basics of it, how to succeed, what it's like. And then we're going to review an example essay from a student as well. And just again, is it clear from the beginning? Does it make sense to us? And so that's why I say for all of you, when you write your essays, sometimes it's wonderful, even without any feedback, to wait a day or two, kind of forget about the question and look at the essay again and just ask yourself if it's clear. Because sometimes we think templates and time management, they are important, but what's most important is making sure that when the grader or the AI reviews your essay, there's clarity and completeness there. So once more, welcome everybody coming in. Good welcome. Drop a little bit of a hello in the comment section, right? If those of you who can, just to make sure that we're all connected as a group. And then, of course, the last thing is I'm going to talk to you about the ways that we can work together to make sure that if you enjoyed the class, you feel like you learned, you can go ahead and you can sign up for some things. We have some classes coming and an amazing writing course so that we can improve together as a team. So, welcome everybody. And I see Panank. Welcome, Dorsa. Happy that you're here. Welcome, everyone. So, first things first. Sania, excellent, excellent. So let's go ahead as usual and let's center ourselves for class. So we see Froggy here. And I always like to give the reminder that when you take your TOEFL, it's normal to feel that stress and pressure. I take the TOEFL regularly. I feel it. So Froggy here just reminds us that when that natural stress comes up, maybe you have a glitch, a computer error, or something upsets you a little bit because a question was more difficult than you expected. We have a technique to center ourselves, to calm ourselves and say, okay, I'm going to give my best try. And there are three steps to it. So the first is make sure that you're taking your deep breaths to calm your body, right? Slow, deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. Number two, we close our eyes. And number three, positive thinking. So we tell ourselves, I'm going to do well. I'm going to try my hardest. I'm going to do better than I did before. So if we do those three things while you're taking the exam, you're going to feel the difference, and it can be the key to help you do something a little bit different so that maybe you can get one or two more points. And before class is just a great way to center our mind as a group. So we have a lot of wonderful students coming in. So let me go ahead now. So once more, Air 2, good morning, welcome. Penang, Dorsa, Sanya, great to be with you. Fatu, Chinonso, welcome. Dipakshi, Arifa, Magdalena, happy that you're here. Nadapat, Arifa, welcome, welcome. So, good morning, happy Saturday. We have Froggy on the screen. Let's go ahead 1 minute together. So, I'm going to bring our timer here. So you see, our timer. So 1 minute to do that as a group. Deep breathing, positive thinking, eyes closed, so we have the best class possible. We're in the mindset that's right for us. 1 minute to do that as a group, starting now. And that was 1 minute, everybody. So to everyone coming in, Laura, Carla, and Fatu, no problem. Happy that you're here, right? Sorry, sometimes the internet connection isn't so strong everywhere. But finishing Froggy, let's go ahead and do our student survey. So just a nice little question that I like to ask when we get started. Lets you know as a group, right, who's with you. So first question, and you can answer all four in the comments and then post it after you finished. Have you taken the TOEFL before? Have you studied a Noteful course before? When do you plan to take your TOEFL? And what are you taking your TOEFL for? So these four questions give me a sense of, how to communicate to you through the class for the best results. So for example, you might say, no, never taken it, haven't studied a course, planning in the middle of July to take the TOEFL for dentistry, or yes, yes, no date yet for pharmacy. So I'm just going to give you, welcome Martha and everybody coming in. Going to give you let's give you 2 minutes to answer these, and then we'll come in and review what you submitted. So just answer these questions in the comments. Let's see who we are as a group. Kind of fun to see where we're all in our TOEFL journey, so to speak. So 2 minutes for that. And that's 2 minutes. So we got some great answers here so we can connect as a group. So Penunk, taken the TOEFL before, new to Noteful. You have about a month for dentistry, right? You want your 100 plus. Dipakshi, well connected. You took your TOEFL, you're studying with us, you haven't planned yet. Also dentistry. So these are top scores we need, right? 100 plus overall, 25 on the writing ideal. Air 2, haven't taken the TOEFL, studying our diamond course, ready to take it in July for your MBA. Aish, new to the TOEFL, new to Noteful, gonna take it. You got about a month, which is great. Also for dentistry. Marwa, connected student, took the TOEFL, studying hard with Noteful. And for pharmacy, waiting for yourself to feel like you're ready to take it. Arifa, no in the near future, studying abroad. Good, going in graduate school. Heba, yes, not yet, dentistry. And then Vichakorn, yes, middle of August. So very good. You're giving yourself time to study, a little over a month, master's degree. Same thing here with L, taking it before, new to Noteful, August PhD. No TOEFL, studying with us, July pharmacy. So we have a lot of TOEFLs coming up in the next, I would say, 2 to 6 weeks for the majority of us. So that's good for me to know. TOEFL. The TOEFL's here. So you have taken it before, new to Noteful, us, middle of July dentistry. Yes, not yet dentistry. Yes, end of July, master's degree, not a pot. Uzoamaka, new to Noteful, new to the TOEFL, August, September pharmacy. Vin-Win, love that name. So yes, no, August PhD. Great, and you can keep sending them in just so I could see it. So what that tells me is that we as a group are all going to take our TOEFLs within 2 to 6 weeks. So we're studying hard to get better, and we all need top scores, right? Most of you looking for, I think almost every single one of you want 100 or more overall, or high minimum scores in each section. So as a group for the writing, I think we all want to achieve at least a 23, most of us up to a 26. So let's go ahead and jump in. First things first, we're going to cover question number 1. So question number 1 begins with an article, and that article is going to present an author's idea, or the reading is going to present a claim. So in the introductory paragraph, right? So it's has a title and then 4 paragraphs. In the first paragraph, it's a little tricky, but unfortunately, some students tend to forget that usually the last sentence of an introductory paragraph is, especially for TOEFL writing question 1, has the direct claim of the author. So you read carefully, but you pay extra attention to that last sentence. And then the remaining 3 paragraphs are body paragraphs that support the claim. And as we know, usually it's the first sentence that's the topic sentence that tends to give the clearest idea of the opinion of the author. So we have this article, we now understand the structure, and it pops up on the computer screen, and you have 3 minutes counting down to read it and take notes. So, how do you do that? So, in those 3 minutes, what you do is, our ideal now is to break it down so that you spend about 45 seconds per paragraph. So from 3 minutes to 2 minutes, 15 seconds, you're reading the introduction. As we said, you are understanding the last sentence is usually that pretty clear claim or statement that the reading is going to support. So you take notes on 2 major things. The background. What is this essay about? So is it about global warming? Is it about a certain chemical in the ocean? Is it about a recent painting and its discovery? And then the claim. Is global warming getting worse? Is there a solution to global warming? Was the painter of this painting famous or not famous? And then you have points of support. So remember, question one is trying to establish your understanding of an argument and a counter argument. That's the fundamental. One way of seeing something and support for it, and then another way. So the reading is giving you one way of seeing something and then evidence to support it. So in each body paragraph, you have 45 seconds to read. That means that you're going down the 3 minutes efficiently, and you're getting the first point of support for this claim, the second point of support for the claim, the third point of support for the claim. Now, of course, in a class, we train a couple of different ideas. For example, sometimes you get a hypothesis and you get three different solutions, three different, or not a hypothesis, but maybe a mystery, something unknown, and you get three possible hypotheses for that to explain that mystery. So there is a sense of a main idea and then three supports to it. So the claim and the supporting claim is the most common, but there are some slight variations in structure. So 3 minutes, you read, you take notes. What happens next? You get a lecture. And of course, there's usually an experience that a student has had where the lecture doesn't seem like it directly counters the reading. So the counter doesn't always have to be very strong, but the idea is that the lecture is giving you an alternative perspective. So the lecture is meant to go against the reading. Now, in class, and when we have more time, for those of you familiar a little bit with the TOEFL, TOEFL speaking question number 2 is where you actually have a very similar structure to TOEFL writing question 1, those of you who are familiar. In TOEFL speaking question number 2, you read an announcement or you read a letter where someone is saying the university should change the library hours and two reasons for it. And then the student, you hear a conversation, and one of the students is going to say, either I agree with that, I think the library should change its hours and supports each of the reasons in the reading, or says, I disagree. So the interesting thing is, when you're studying TOEFL speaking question 2, that is the exact same pattern as TOEFL writing question 1, and you should see that. So in TOEFL speaking question 2, you're going to be aware, oh, the student is agreeing, the student is disagreeing, and then we have the patterns to explain. In TOEFL writing question number 1, it's pretty consistent that the lecture goes against the reading. But the reason why I want to bring that up is because it helps you see those connections so you can study a bit better. You can be maybe less worried because you're like, I already have some understanding of how to do this. So the help for the lecture for question 1 is there's largely disagreement. So when you take notes, you see that we have a pattern, one line down the middle, three lines across. Makes it very organized, right? So you have your notes for each of the paragraphs in the reading, and the lecture is not meant to be confusing. It's meant to be direct and explain to you the opposite. So the lecture will disagree with the claim, and then will disagree with each of the supporting points. And so you take your notes not just to get the details, but to understand how the lecturer is saying, no, that's wrong. No, that's imprecise. Something wasn't considered. And so at the end of that, you have your screen, and what happens is you get to see the reading again. So this is your computer screen on the TOEFL. So you see the article, the reading. And this is really important because the reading helps you with your spelling, with your grammar, with your capitalization. Because sometimes there's these unique words or animals or, you know, areas in the world that you might not be familiar with. And when I look at essays, often those words are misspelled. But that's unfortunate because the reading spells it correctly. So make sure that you remember when there's something that you're not sure about the grammar, the spelling, the capitalization, check the reading. No reason to make that error because errors do count against us. So that's one nice thing about the reading. Now, how do you write your essay in 20 minutes? So again, in class and in our training, you're able to study this and review this. You're going to see this recording, this live uploaded on YouTube so you can review it regularly. But just to give you a sense, we follow the same pattern that we understood the information in. So you'll see that you can write for a 30 out of 30 perfect score, a 4-paragraph essay. So the question is always going to be, how does the lecture oppose or counter the points in the reading? So the easiest pattern that we've ever seen that we teach, there are many patterns. You just have to focus and master one, is the same way your brain took in the information is a good way for your brain to explain the information. And according to also integrating some strategy, that's the introductory paragraph begins by explaining the reading, the background, and the claim of the reading, then how the lecture opposes it. And that's the introduction. What did we get next? We got the body paragraph, the support for it. So now we explain the reading's claim, like support for the claim. And then everything we can get about the lecture. So this is where we start to understand strategy. So in the introduction, one sentence about the background, one sentence about the author's claim, and then the counter from the professor. And that introductory paragraph should take you about 3 minutes because you want a balanced essay. You don't want to invest too much time in the introduction. Then each body paragraph, you want to spend about 5 minutes. So when the timer counts down from 20 to 17, you transition to the body paragraph. Sometimes you have to really push yourself because it is important to be balanced. So maybe the lecture, you notice the time and it's like, uh-oh, I didn't finish my sentence. Just finish it quickly because if you finish early, you can go back and correct it. But a balanced essay is really important. So then for the reading, you have one sentence. What's the support of the claim? And then you try to get everything from the lecture. So the next major issue that we see is sometimes for the reading, we see 2 sentences or we see 3 sentences explaining. But the lecture is more important. It is the focus. So you want one clear sentence from the reading and maybe 3, 4, 5 sentences from the lecture. Everything that you learned about it. And so you do that repeatedly for each body paragraph. So you'll see as I scroll down, 5 minutes for each body paragraph, and then 2 minutes left for you to fix anything and also to give you a little bit of space. So in case you made a mistake and lost your time management, at least you have a little space to cover that. So how does that work? Time management from 20 to 17, you write your introduction. When your timer counts down from 17 to 12, your first body paragraph, 12 to 7, your second body paragraph, 7 to 2, your third body paragraph, and 2 to 0, you have a little space to make corrections or adjustments. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to review a student's essay, but so far, everybody clear with question 1? Let me know in the chat, comment section. All clear? You can give me a little thumbs up or an emoji. Marwa, good. TOEFL, good. R2 plus, love it. Pinank, yes. Magdalena, yes. Okay, good. Love the interaction. Ribbon, not a pot. Now, ribbon, you say not so clear. So let me know what might be a little bit tricky for you. Any part of this that was confusing, maybe how to write the essay or something. Thank you for letting me know. Arifa, Martha, Dipakshi, Elvin, excellent. So anybody who has a little bit of trouble, let me know what's giving the issue, and I hope this helps. So what you see I've done is this is an essay from a student, and this is from one of our courses I'll talk about later. Now, the reason why we're not doing a question is because of time, right? We have a 1 hour class. I want to cover both questions. But this is so important because I want to just show you how does it read your essay? Does it make sense as an essay? Because sometimes we can get so aware of the details and the strategy that we forget the essay needs by itself to make sense to the reader. So many of us may or may not be familiar with this, but let's go ahead and look at this example essay from a student. So let me remove the timer so we have a little bit more ease reading the text. So here's the introductory paragraph. And the first thing is, I like it because it has 3 sentences, right? 1, 2, 3. So it follows our structure perfectly in the sense of one sentence about the background, one sentence about the claim, one sentence about the professor opposing. So let's go ahead here now. The reading article states that space exploration has been one of humanity's most significant scientific pursuits. Makes sense, right? Okay, so I guess the background is about space exploration. It's in our head. This sentence makes a lot of sense. So now my expectation is the claim. What is the argument here? The writer argues, good language, that space explorations greatly outweigh the costs. Now, I think many of you should recognize this is a little bit challenging to grab. We want a claim to be clear, to be obvious. And so my thinking is to express this better is we have probably the writer argues that the benefits of space exploration, right? Space exploration is speaking in general, so it's not a count noun. We don't need that S. The benefits of space exploration greatly outweigh, we can be a little possessive, its costs. Now, we've gotten a little bit clearer. So I would argue also that the benefits outweigh the costs. It's a good statement, but there's probably a more direct way to explain the argument. Like maybe we should continue to pursue space exploration. In other words, of course, we're not looking at the question. And the reason is I want you to remember your job is not simply to write or explain your notes or to go through strategy and time management, but to make sure that when you write your sentences, a reader who has no idea about this question, even the TOEFL, would be able to follow what you write. If you do that, then you have the clarity to earn a higher score. And so let's continue with the third sentence. So we made the changes, now we understand, and the expectation is to be clear here, right? Let's go. According to the lecturer, the overall cost and risk associated with space exploration outweigh the reward, and he refutes all the significant points stated in the reading. Now, as you can see, the reason why I want to show you this is because there's some template memorization here, which is good, but it doesn't really follow from what we just read. And that is what creates, we can say maybe a lack of clarity or a lack of connection, which starts to lower the score because we can't just write what we memorized in a template. We have to write to follow the sentence that we wrote before. There has to be that connection. That's the expectation. So here we have the writer argues that the benefits of space exploration greatly outweigh its costs. So it's a good thing. Now here we according to the lecture, maybe we can be a little bit clear with the contrast and we can say on the other hand, because it's helping me to see there's opposition. So it's not just something we memorized, it's helping to see that contrast. On the other hand, now let's go ahead, because here we have according to the lecture, right? So we can just say the professor explains. Now, the overall cost and risks. So we can be a bit more direct. The professor explains the overall cost is a count noun, costs and risks associated with space exploration I can change this a little bit. Instead of outweigh the reward, we could say outweigh the benefits to be more direct, or we can say are too great. On the other hand, the professor explains the overall costs and risks associated with space exploration are too great. So too emphasizes too significant, right? You could add that. And that counters this idea. I like this statement here. Costs and risks associated with space exploration outweigh the reward. However, it's a little bit tricky because I did add the word benefits, and I did do that because we needed clarity. So for consistency, even though I added that word, we could say the I just think something a little bit more connected would be better. Now, some students I know we have a lot of worry about repetition. However, what I noticed in most essays is that when we avoid repetition, sometimes as we're learning to get better, we actually create disconnection because we change the words and it becomes a little bit more difficult to understand. So I often find that you do better when you keep it simple, maybe even repeat yourself a little bit to create clarity. And then once you master clarity, then you can change the words. But if you jump to that right away, it might be a little bit tricky. So we can say overall costs and risks associated with space exploration are significant. So let's go back to that. And he refutes all the significant points stated in the reading. Now, I would actually delete this because we didn't mention that the writer presents points. So as a result, this phrase right here is a little bit disconnected, right? Because he refutes all the significant points stated in the reading. But I didn't mention any of those points. So this feels a little disconnected with what was written before. So if we wanted to write that, on the other hand, the professor explains the overall costs and risks associated with space exploration are significant. Yeah, I don't see an easy way to reference the reading, and we don't need to so much. So we've simplified it, we've made it more direct, and now we've allowed ourselves to raise our score with that introductory paragraph. So let me go ahead and check in, everybody. All clear? One more time. That when we write, we want to make sure that we're looking at it, what we've written, as if we're somebody who doesn't know anything about the TOEFL or the question, and we can just say, does it make sense? And that's going to help us improve our score. So let me know in the comments. Good, Mandalena, Pinankan. If not, let me know whatever's giving you trouble. Chinonso, Nadapat, Marwa, Muhammad. Excellent. So now let's look at the body paragraph. Same idea. So this body paragraph, we have one sentence about the reading. We have the rest about the lecture. Perfect. We have good structure. So let's see if it follows. Now, my expectation is that I'm going to read the benefit from the author, and then I'm going to read the costs from the professor, right? Because I'm reading the body paragraph as it follows the introduction. So let's see if it follows comfortably. First, the speaker explains that some discoveries lead to scientific progress. So here, I get a little bit confused, and I think it's just a typo, but we're probably not mentioning the speaker. I believe we're trying to mention the author, right? Because the writer argues that the benefits of space exploration greatly outweigh its costs. So the expectation is first, the writer explains that some discoveries lead to scientific progress. So the expectation here is that I'm following this idea. So let me highlight it. That means that I I have a sense of greatly outweigh its costs. So it would flow a little bit stronger if there were a statement. The writer explains that some discoveries lead to scientific progress, which is worth the cost. Now, this sentence here, it may be simplistic, but what I want to illustrate is you notice how adding this sentence follows from the introductory paragraph. So perhaps in the reading, there was some statement about the millions or billions of dollars spent, right? That could be a detail. But what I want to show you is that that makes a nice sentence that creates an essay that would earn a higher score because you told me that the writer is arguing the benefits outweigh the costs. So when you tell me the first point of support, the expectation is this benefit is significant so that this cost is not too big a deal. So we're writing according to what we wrote. So what I notice is sometimes when we're writing, we can forget what we wrote, and then that can create a little hole that prevents us from scoring as high as we could. So the writer explains that some discoveries lead to scientific project, which which we could say which make space exploration worth the cost. Again, this is a little repetitive because we don't have the article, but I want to show you that, oh, so it would be valuable if maybe I had a detail from the reading so that I could emphasize what I stated was what the writer or the author was doing. Now let's go ahead and look at the professor. And so again, the professor, the idea is that the professor is saying, no, no, no. The cost is too significant. Maybe the scientific progress is not that meaningful. Maybe, maybe the cost is so significant it puts people in danger. So that's the expectation from the introductory paragraph. And then we have, however, climate based research can be done by Earth satellites. So you can recognize, whoa, wait a second, where did that come from? And so again, I see many essays as students begin our courses where we have body paragraphs like this. Intelligent students, all of you. But what happens is we get focused on the template, the time management, explaining our notes, and we forget that actually the priority of everything is making sure that everything is flowing clearly to the reader. So, how do we transition? We can understand the idea. Climate based research can be done by Earth satellites without any space missions. We can kind of understand, oh, I see. So, the argument is that the professor says it's not worth the cost because you can get that same benefit on Earth. Now, that's what I have to write, right? What I just said is how I understood this sentence, but we have to write that for clarity because that's not stated here. That's going to drop our score maybe 2 to 4 points. So, how do we do that? Okay. So, first, the writer explains that some discoveries lead to scientific progress. So, that's what I just wrote. So, a transition would be, however, the professor explains this progress doesn't require space exploration. You see, I'm not reading the essay because this is the skill of writing and transitioning, right? This is the skill of making sure that we are explaining something. So now it makes sense. The writer explains that some discoveries lead to scientific progress, which make space exploration or I could say, which makes space exploration worth the cost. Now I got to counter that. However, the professor explains this progress, or maybe I could say these discoveries, right? So this is a transition, doesn't require space exploration. And I can make it even stronger by saying doesn't require the costs of space exploration. Now, again, you might say, but isn't that repetitive? Yes, yes. However, this is repetition for connection, which is required, right? We lower our score if we don't have it. And as I was saying before, we might have a detail from the lecture that we can add, but I just want to show you, even without the detail, what we can do. So here we go. Now, if we see climate-based research can be done by Earth satellites, now I simply have to add an example, because that's an example that progress doesn't require the cost of space exploration. Like, it's not worth it because we could do it on Earth. Now, that has actually allowed us to raise our score 2 to 4 points, but it didn't require any extra note taking. It didn't require so much of an extra effort. However, it does take word count. So sometimes that's the challenge. That's why I say we have to improve in steps, because sometimes our word count isn't as strong as it could be, or we have to gradually improve that over time. So, for example, climate based research can be done by Earth satellites without any space missions. According to NASA, the Mars rover cost 2.7 billion for space research. With the same amount of money, thousands of projects on Earth could be done. So here, according to NASA, the Mars rover cost 2.7 billion for space research. I think this is a good I think there's not too much here to add. So this is establishing the idea. We assume climate-based research, Mars rover, it's just climate-based research can be done by Earth satellites. So is the Mars rover like what's happening here? So I need a little bit of help. Climate-based research can be done by Earth satellites without any space missions. So we know that this is expensive space research, but you see how I don't understand the relationship between this sentence and the previous sentence, because it looks like this is space research that was done that was really expensive. Was this related to climate research? So you notice that what I'm doing is I'm constantly double checking if the sentence makes sense by itself, and that when I write my next sentence, I'm developing the idea of the previous sentence. And if it doesn't develop smoothly, I have to make it smooth. I have to add words. I have to understand some connection. Now, again, this is hard. This is why we improve little by little. So the number one thing I wanted to teach you was most of you are studying hard. You have your templates, you have your time management. One thing to add, put it in your notes, is that you want to look at each sentence, make sure it's complete and clear by itself, and make sure that your next sentence follows from your previous sentence to make it easier. Make sure you understand your body paragraph is developing the idea from your own introductory paragraph. And when you do that, your language improves and you start to raise your score even more. Does that make sense for question one, everybody? One more time. All clear? Any confusion, let me know. Now, Sonia, you wrote in your last TOEFL you had only 15 minutes. So that would be a glitch. That is not something that should happen. So if you ever see the time different than what you are training for, that's usually an error. You should raise your hand, or if you're taking the home-based, you should alert the proctor, because either we didn't notice the time went down, or that's a glitch, and that can happen sometimes. Good. Appreciate your participation, everybody. All right. So now the next thing is the question number 2 essay. So the same thing applies, right? We learned our main point. For question number 2, the format is you get a question from a professor. And that question is a general question about similar to TOEFL speaking question 1, for those of you familiar with it, where it asks for your opinion. And Sonia, you said that that happened twice? Well, definitely that's something to maybe send an email to ETS for, maybe that test center. Sometimes there can be, unfortunate issues, but 15 minutes is not something that is normal. So that sometimes that can happen, right? We all have glitches, but know that that's unexpected. Raise your hand, email the center or email ETS, and they'll usually respond by maybe giving you a free voucher for a future TOEFL. So that's unfortunate. I'm sorry you experienced that. So in question number 2, you get a question from a professor that asks for your opinion about an academic topic. So what that means is, do you think teachers should give homework every day? Do you think that cities should ban the use of private cars? Do you think the government should invest more in education or business? So these general, just like TOEFL speaking question 1, where it's evaluating your ability to make your own argument. So the professor asks you such a question. And then what you're going to read is you're going to read a response from one student. So one student is going to have a 50-word answer saying, I do believe that students should get homework every day. Then you have a response from another student that says, I believe students shouldn't get homework every day. So it's warming your brain up. You essentially have an academic question, and then you go ahead and you read responses from students. So you're understanding, okay, this is a discussion. Then you type your own response expressing your answer to the question and your support. And you have 10 minutes total. So you read the question, the responses from the student, and you type your own response giving your opinion. You have 10 minutes. So it goes really quick. So we have to have in our head everything memorized. That's the challenge of the exam that I want to encourage you for. All of you taking the exam 2 to 6 weeks from now, I always say, make sure you can close your eyes and you can visualize every minute what you're going to do on the exam, the templates, the strategies, the connections, what you learned in this class, because it's going to happen so quickly. If you can't just see what you're going to do from memory, oftentimes that's going to be the moment that you're confused or stressed, and that will be where you lower your score. So I'm going to talk to you about how our classes prepare you for that too, so you know what to do in every minute. So good, Sonia. Yes. So what's our template? So our template is that I'll make it bigger, that you read and brainstorm in the first 2 minutes. So the timer counts down from 10 minutes. You're reading the question, you're reading the students' responses, you're just warming your brain up, you're brainstorming, what do you think and why? Keep it simple and keep it honest. So 2 minutes for that. And then you start typing. Now, how do you type? So let me tell you our basic template. So the first thing you want to do, of course, is state your preference, your answer. What do you think? Let's make it clear and obvious. Then we have a strategy so that you integrate with the discussion, that you reference a student that agrees with you. You point out, I did read, I do see this student agrees with me, makes a good point. And then you state your own reason. So you say, well, not only like what this student said, but also my own reason for choosing this. And we're going to see an example to clarify this so it makes sense. So these three points: state your preference, refer to a student that agrees with you, then state your own reason, and explain how your reason leads to your preference or idea. In other words, you know, why does this opinion have the reason that you said? Or how does it work? You're basically explaining your reason a little bit more, helping me understand it. So you want to complete that by about 5 minutes. So you have 3 minutes to state your preference, refer to a student, your own reason, and a little bit of explanation for it. And then your example, your evidence, your argument, your explanation. What happened to you, your life, a friend's life, what you've read, what you've researched, what you've studied, what you've learned. And we give ourselves 4 minutes for that, 4 minutes for the evidence of it. And then in the final minute, a conclusion. Because this passes so quickly, there's not much space like in question number one where we can look back at something. So we really have to have this mastered so that we can just flow from one sentence to the next. So that's our time management. We put it on the screen so you can see it all. Once more, all clear, everyone? And if this one, it's okay if it's not so clear. Let me see where you are. All clear, not really, little bit. When we see the example, it should be better. And then what should I do if I can't come up with new reasons or ideas? My experience is that you will be able to come up at least with one reason, right? Usually we can relate to something. And the good thing is that's all we need for this. If you're worried right now, now is the time to improve. So I always say, and I'm going to talk to you about our courses next, but right now to help yourself, you practice these questions, and I always tell students to make flashcards, have a notebook. Um, you can use apps on your phone, but basically, when you do questions like this, sometimes we just write an essay. But when you get an example question, think to yourself 3 reasons for each side. So, for example, let's say you get a question that says, should students be able to choose where they sit in class? That means, should seats be assigned for students or they get to sit where they want? So that's kind of a strange question, right? So sometimes we'll just do that question and move on to the next. So if you're having trouble with reasons or ideas, then that means you want to come up with 3 or 4 reasons for each side. 3 or 4 unique reasons that make sense to you for why a student should not get to pick his or her own seats. And now you can use Google, you can use AI to help you, but you don't just come up with the reasons, it's what you believe. And you write, I know it's tough, 4 essays, right? To support that. Then you think of 4 reasons for why students should be able to choose their own seats. Because what that does is it forces you to start to reflect on your own opinions and beliefs. It forces you to connect with examples. It is the effort required to get better. And now what you're going to realize is if you do that for a few questions, it'll take you 2, 4, 6 hours. But if you do that for different questions, then you're going to see it's getting easier because now you're building a good memorized vocabulary of opinions in your head. The process of thinking about or connecting with what you believe is going to get easier. So usually the solution to not coming up with ideas or reasons is building your vocab on reasons and then making sure for every question you require yourself to come up with 4 good reasons for each choice available, and you complete answers or essays for each. It's hard work, but it'll reward you with a higher score. So great question. And now let's see. Yes, Yusuf. The example right here. So we don't get an example question just for time constraints. We're already at the end of the hour, but I wanted to show you the essay, right? So here's an essay from a student. And so what I want to do is flow through this. Let's look at it together. The government should open universities in rural areas, even though providing job opportunities in those areas is excellent. So I see this a lot in beginning essays when you first start to learn, but I want to show you, because you haven't read the question, this sentence should sound a little strange to you. Great student, intelligent student, fantastic grammar, but I don't understand what we have an opinion on. So the question is actually, how do you get more people to stay in rural areas? But we don't understand that from this. So we would say the government, so we might say, to make living in rural areas more attractive, the government should open universities there, even though providing job opportunities in those areas is excellent. So when we're making a comparison, the even though seems a little bit, to me, confusing. So we would write something like, to make living in rural areas more attractive, it would be more effective for the government to open universities there rather than provide job opportunities. Now you can understand, right? Because now you get, oh, I see the idea. I understand the question. How do you make rural areas more attractive to people? And I understand the idea being presented that opening universities is better than providing jobs. So, to make living in rural areas more attractive, it would be more effective for the government to open universities there rather than provide maybe more jobs. This is a big deal because that's the very first sentence in your essay. There's only 10 minutes, so it's a very short essay. So each sentence carries a lot of power. So we want it to be complete, clear for anybody. Now we continue. So we know that we need to reference a student that agrees with us in the discussion. As Amira wrote, opening new colleges and universities will attract students and introduce diverse entertainment, such as drama performances, and art galleries. I like it. It's really clear. Now, remember what we talked about with question one. So I just wrote, it's more attractive if you open universities. So to follow that sentence, I'm going to try, I'm explaining why it makes it more attractive. So as Amira wrote, we can summarize this because I just expressed it. As Amira wrote, this will attract students and introduce diverse entertainment for current residents. So here I could use the pronoun, as Amira wrote, this will attract students. So you see, okay, making it more attractive and introduce diverse entertainment for current residents. So this implies a little bit more naturally, oh, okay, you're going to make it better for current residents. You're going to make it more attractive, not only to bring in new people, but you're also going to make it attractive for people who already live there. They're going to like it better. So I'm explaining Amira's opinion in a way that flows and makes sense. Now, Dorsa, you asked in the first sentence, why is even though wrong in the intro? It's a little bit tough to explain, but It's not what's right or wrong, it's what's more clear. And the question is asking which option is better. So if I say apples are sweeter than oranges, it's a clear statement that I'm arguing apples are sweeter, have more of that quality than oranges. If I say I believe apples are sweet, even though oranges are also sweet, that actually sounds a little difficult to follow because I don't really get the idea. Like, why are we mentioning oranges? Unless we're trying to say one is better than the other. So, even though is not appropriate here in capturing the idea that one thing is more effective than the other, even though is not a comparison, right? John is taller than Susie is different than John is tall, even though Susie is tall, right? One is contrast, the other is comparison. So different meanings there. So that's why here, even though didn't work so well as in the first sentence. Now let's continue, and I'll finish up here. So now we have the student's reason, right? So the student is going to contribute to the conversation. Living in rural areas is cheaper than in well-developed cities. So students can save lots of money during their 3 to 4 year academic course. So this is again wonderful. Like, this is great grammar, great idea, very intelligent. But we're trying to say what's going to make living in a rural area more attractive. We've just referenced Amira. You're going to bring in students, you're going to have diverse entertainment. Now I need the author's opinion. So we could say plus. So that's a nice transition that shows me I'm adding to the conversation. Living in rural areas is cheaper than in well-developed cities. Okay, so I guess I'm adding to the idea of making it more attractive to students. But this is not actually adding a new reason, right? Because the attracting students has already been stated. So maybe it would be good to add the professor, right? So plus living in rural areas is cheaper than in well-developed cities. So professors can save lots of money when they teach and decide to live there permanently. So two things happened here. Number one, I need to add to the conversation, which is why I changed the focus from students to professors. So that way I'm showing I have different ideas, I can get a higher score. The second thing I did is I think it was pretty good actually. I didn't change too much. It's just staying with what makes it more attractive. So that's why I said they live there permanently, right? Living in rural areas is cheaper than in well-developed cities, so professors can save lots of money when they teach and decide to live there. And I can say, and may decide to live there permanently. Of course, we can continue to review this essay. Great essay. But for our limited time, wanting to talk about both essays, my goal was to teach you something that you can immediately start using when you write. And what you're noticing is, clarity and completeness. Because sometimes we can get so focused on paraphrasing or I don't want to be repetitive that we actually move our essay into a lower score. So, everybody, did that make sense? Good job. We completed our training. That was an hour and 5 minutes. I don't know about you, it flew by. So, all clear? The number one thing I want you to get is clear sentences that are fully understandable. That is more important than worrying about repetition or paraphrasing, right? An unclear sentence is always going to hurt your score, and you don't deserve that. Make your sentences clear, even if it hurts and it feels a little repetitive. Trust me, it's better. Number two, make sure that when you write one sentence, you double check it's following the idea of the previous sentence, or else it will be disconnected and result in a lower rating. And then the idea is, don't forget there's a purpose to your essay. In writing question one, you're showing how the professor goes against the author, as you've explained in your introductory paragraph. In your question number two essay, it's arguing for your idea, where you're contributing to the conversation that you've already reviewed. So let's go ahead and see here. Excellent. Magdalena, Sonia, awesome. Not a pot, air two. Everybody, super cool. Yeah. And that concludes our class for today, right? Really happy that you were here because these are important points. And now it's time to make sure to encourage you all to work together. Many of you have 2 to 6 weeks. I would say that this is when you work with Noteful. I'm going to talk to you about the different resources that we have depending on your time. So, the first thing is, if you found the class helpful, I do want to encourage many of you for what our students tend to say, especially because so many of you are looking for top scores, which can be tough. So, Ahmed, you see he scored amazing. I love referring to him. I usually do in the live classes we have. Reading 28, listening 29, speaking 26, writing 27, total 110. Amazing student who worked very hard over years to improve. The number one thing that he said in his interview was, take a course. I wish I started sooner. Why? Especially for our classes he was referring to, because the classes that we have force you to study because there's a schedule, and have faith in yourself. Because he was working very hard to improve over time, there are moments of doubt. Maybe some of you are experiencing that, or you will in the future. Stay strong, have faith in yourself, you will pass. One of the biggest things I want to share with students is, sometimes we can feel, oh, I took this class, I took this course, and it didn't help because my score is the same. Maybe, but it's actually how many hours you studied, because this is a challenging exam. So I want you to think that any course you register for, it's usually going to take at least 40 hours to get some meaningful benefit of it. And for the TOEFL, usually ideal to make that big jump possible, depending on where you are, it should be 100 hours. So 40 hours minimum for any course, 100 hours ideal. Then you're really going to see the power of it because you've reviewed it enough, you've memorized it enough. So now let me tell you what we have to offer. Vin, happy that you're here too. Appreciate you, right? Want you to be encouraged and want you to stay strong. So at Noteful, right? So if you go to noteful.com, notfull.com, you'll see that we have a couple of sections. So our TOEFL prep section, right? When you click on TOEFL prep, you'll see the different courses that we have. So as I scroll down, you see that we offer 4 ways to help you: self-study training, online classes, which are beginning Monday, small group tutoring. We haven't released our schedule yet for July and August, but we will soon. So if you follow us on Instagram, you follow us on YouTube, we don't really do too many posts of the courses and the classes we're having. So make sure that you go to Noteful if you click on the Getting Started page of Noteful, let me take you there first. You'll see that we have the training for the TOEFL, especially for those of you who are new, and a place where you can submit your email and your name, and that'll put you into the newsletter. For example, we're going to send in a couple of hours or maybe by tomorrow the link to this recording as well as the PDF that we used so that you can make sure to improve. Oh, and Butterfly. Great name. If you have trouble with time management, definitely go to Noteful Getting Started because you'll see that we teach you the time management throughout the entire TOEFL in the beginning of this video. And when you submit your name and email, the first email that we send everybody is the basics of the TOEFL, specifically time management, because that's so important. And then EROM one more time, small group tutoring. We're going to release that schedule in about a week or so. So sign up for our newsletter or follow us on Instagram. Like if you go to our site, you see that we have the little icon here for Instagram. So you click on that, you follow that, you get regular updates to all our tutoring and our schedules as they come out. So let me go back to TOEFL Prep. And then Habashi, in which way can you finish the writing question 2? Just real quick, writing question number 2, it's usually just a pretty simple concluding statement. That's why the government should open new universities in rural areas, because you've already written very clearly, I hope, in the first sentence your answer. It's just a concluding repetition. Conclusions by their nature are simple, short, and repetitive. So just to help you with the next steps, we finished with small group tutoring. And what I'm super excited to share with you today, what I like to call our game-changing AI TOEFL training. So we have released integrated training with AI that I'm going to talk to you about soon. But let's go ahead and start with our upcoming classes starting Monday. So that's what I want to invite all of you to. But if you go on TOEFL Prep, for those of you who need quick help, you have the Diamond course, our self-study training with 200 plus hours. So that's if you want to study on your own, you're going to study 12, 24, 36 hours a week. You have 2 to 3 weeks. You're going to study like crazy. That's the perfect course for you. If you have your TOEFL, many of you do, 2, 3, 4 weeks, especially like 2 weeks or so, and you may not have that much time to study, definitely get our ultra fast course. Now, super important. Sometimes students get confused. There's ultra fast TOEFL prep is not about practice. So you're only going to get about 2 practice tests in ultra fast prep. The goal is that in ultra fast prep, we have videos that walk you through every part of the TOEFL. So it's really meant to be a minute by minute detailed explanation. So Noteful is not really about giving you lots of practice. Noteful is about training you, building your skills. So make sure that you're aware of that so that way you know what you're getting, which is the deep, focused training to improve. Enough practice to do so, but practice is not the major focus. And you'll see that we have a description of the course. So make sure that you read it so you feel comfortable with it. And of course, for everybody, we have free TOEFL basics. If you just want to check out how we teach, if you want some extra practice, quick prep, in about 4 to 8 hours, you'll be finished with this and really know every part of the TOEFL. So if you go to our site, you click on Getting Started, you add the free course, you're going to be in a good position to do well. We also have our grammar training. Grammar is a big deal. So for those of you who feel like your grammar is holding you back, this is a fantastic course that goes through 24 lessons designed to make sure to improve your TOEFL score. Now, I'm going to focus on the TOEFL classes. So starting this Monday, the first thing I want to do is I want to invite you. If you're not ready for your next TOEFL, you have at least 4 weeks, ideally 6 weeks or more. So you're going to take your exam in the middle or end of August, maybe beginning of September. So in about 6 to 8 weeks from today, this is the best course to join, in my opinion, because I'll be guiding you through every section in classes like these and all the practice. So, how does it work? So, of course, you simply click, you register as you would on any site, you join, and once you register, you complete registration, just add to cart like anything. This is the first page of your course. So you go to your account, you click on your membership, and you're taken to the first page. And I've made it so that it's as easy as possible for you. All you have to do is read and click next at the bottom of every page. So it's an intense course, not meant for you to jump around. The beauty of our training is it's walking you minute by minute through what you have to do. So when you land on the first page, you see the first thing we do is we explain the course and your homework before your first class. Now, you don't have to finish it. It's starting Monday. Definitely attend, but this is how you get started to improve right away, starting today. So you read that and you see that you have 3 parts to your homework. The first part is where we teach you how to study effectively, how to make sure that you're maximizing every minute. And we've been doing this for 17 years, since 2008. So I've helped over 10,000 students in 17 years get their dream score, something I'm very proud of. And that experience has taught me how you want to study so you get better. So that's where you begin. It takes about 4 hours to complete. You have the link that takes you right there, right? Just read and click, follow, and you'll be fine. The next thing is Essential TOEFL Basics. This makes sure whether you've taken or never taken the TOEFL, we cover all 4 sections, what you have to do, what to expect, so that you can perform well. Then we have that section. You just click, you jump to it, you complete it. And then we have critical TOEFL habits. So super big deal. This is something that I'm also very proud to offer you. It's something that you won't find in many other TOEFL courses. I don't think in any, because these are what we've learned over 17 years are the underlying habits to get better. So this is something to study 1 to 4 hours every week. And in these critical TOEFL habits, we build your vocab, we build your pronunciation and your delivery. We work on your note taking. We work on your typing speed. We also work on coming up with reasons and examples for TOEFL speaking question 1, writing question 2. So over the years, we've learned so much about, wow, the student is studying hard. The student, however, is not really improving their reading score. What's going on? So in tutoring sessions, I learned that many of us don't have a general mastery of how do we read academic writing? How, what is a paragraph? How do sentences work? And we have to have that if we're going to start to score high on detail questions, inference questions, summary questions. So that led us to create hours and hours of training. So critical habits is a super big deal. There's like 20 to 40 hours of extra training here on all the little details. So definitely you're not expected to complete it all, but to work on it 1 to 4 hours every week. And so you see, we're not even talking about the classes yet, but you have all the good stuff to help you improve. You don't have to finish that right away, but that's your homework. That's what you work on in addition to classes, so you never have to worry about needing more material. Then, of course, our classes. So our classes, our links and our recordings. When you register, if you miss a class, you can watch the recording. You get access for as long as you need. You simply click here and you get the links to attend, you get the schedule, everything there, right? This is the first page of your course. I've done my best to make it super easy for you. Just read that page. Everything is there for you to succeed. And then our bonus training. So this is super cool because after you complete your classes, or those of you who are studying, sometimes students are ready to study 40, 60 hours a week. So you can do this as well during class, but for many students after our classes finish, you have bonus training sets of previous gold course classes for you to study. So we have one training set with 24 hours more video training, for you to review, another practice test to evaluate yourself with. We have another training set, right? Just read, click, and it's right there for you. 24 more hours of training. I did this so that every single one of you has what you need to get your dream score, needing nothing else. Unless, for example, you feel like we have grammar training and critical habits. We have about 4 hours of training. But the only thing you would need to register for after this is perhaps the vocab course, our dual grammar course, because maybe your grammar really needs a lot of work. And also, a lot of students tend to continue because the schedules are so helpful. The classes are alive and engaging, and I try to make them interesting and fun. So it really is all you need, one gold course. But many students register for more just to continue to have live classes. So feel comfortable, this is enough. And before your TOEFL, this is a big deal. This is a big deal. I'm going to answer your question soon. Remember how in the beginning of this class I told you that you need to be able to close your eyes and review every minute of what you're going to do? I am really proud of this. And the reason for that is because, oh, actually, I'm jumping ahead. Let me tell you later. So before your TOEFL, we have two things for you. Another complete practice test, right? You want to take this when you feel like you've really gotten ready to improve, because we also have there how you can evaluate yourself to see if you're ready to get your dream score with a whole new full TOEFL. And you just click here and you take it. But don't jump to it, right? Because you have a lot to do first to improve. And then this is what I was talking about, our success meditations. So super big deal. But what I have is I have a guided meditation, a script for you to read through. It's about, it's each one is maybe 10 minutes. And so what happens sometimes, I guess you could say 8 to 12 minutes depending on how deeply you go through it, but it's for the reading, listening, speaking and writing. Because one of the biggest things I noticed for students is, how do you perform on your actual TOEFL? You're studying hard, but on the exam you get stressed out. You have so many things that you're studying, it starts to get disorganized in the head. So the success meditations are so critical. I absolutely want you all to study this. And my recommendation is 2 days before your TOEFL, maybe 3, but 2 days at least. Don't study any more TOEFL material, in my experience, right? Not with intense energy, because you've been studying hard. Now it's time to review and organize your strategies and your techniques. So 2 days before your TOEFL, you should be visualizing what you're going to do every minute of the exam. So you're in control, you're applying strategy, and the meditations are there to help you do that. And then, of course, the final point, you can't see it here, but I have my phone number. So my personal number. Now, I do get behind on text messages, but it's a way for you to feel that you can text me anytime so that we are connected into the future. As I said before, sometimes it takes me time to reply because I have a busy schedule, but at least it's some connection where you know I will reply. I am behind every one of these courses. I do guarantee it's going to help you to improve. Now, whew, I'm going to talk about one more course, but that's the one I invite you all to. That's our gold course. So you just click on TOEFL Prep, online classes, and our breakthrough June, July, and August gold course starting this Monday. If you see this late, always feel comfortable registering because you could watch the recordings to catch up. Now, let me go ahead and address some questions here. So, not a pot, studied over 300 hours. Bravo. But still hesitating to register an exam because I'm not confident. Do you have any suggestions? Yes. I would say not a pot. Register. Do it today. Register for 2 to 3 weeks from now, because you do want to also think, even though I don't feel I'm ready, I do encourage students to take the TOEFL after every 100 hours they study. Because if you can, if it fits within your schedule and your budget, because that keeps you connected with the exam, even if you're not ready. It's enough time to notice your improvement. So it sharpens how you study. So I would say, not a pup, believe in yourself, work on those success meditations, and you can do it. You can do it. Let's see here. Ram, the AI, it's coming. I'm going to talk about that next for those of you who need help in the writing. And then, can we find the same content and homework with Diamond Course? I would say there is a lot of connection between the Diamond Course and the Gold Course. We have the same how to study section. We have the same critical habits section. So I would think more about the class schedule. That's the key thing. So if you're thinking, should I study the Diamond course or the Gold course, right? Diamond is self-study. It's really, do I want online classes to push me to study, or am I comfortable studying on my own? If you feel like, yeah, those classes would be push me, I like it, go for the Gold course. If you think to yourself, I can study by myself, I have a good ability to manage my schedule, I would go for the Diamond course. That's how I would decide. And then you'll get the material you need from there. Hope that makes sense. Okay, now I'm going to finally finish. But the next course I really am thrilled and encourage you to register for, especially if you need help in the writing, is our TOEFL Max Writing. This is a subscription course. So it is something that you register for, and it's a monthly subscription. Now, TOEFL Max is my way of guaranteeing that you're going to improve. It is the most exciting course that we have, and everything that we're doing is moving towards this kind of instruction. Because when I started in 2008, that was the beginning of streaming video. So right now, we have YouTube Live, we have recorded videos everywhere. But around 2006 to 2008, it was brand new. And so in 2008, it revolutionized the ability of teachers, because what we could do is we could record content on video and we can present it to you. So it's like what you read in a book, but even better. So we started Noteful. We offered all of our courses online, the video training and tutoring, and that's how we established ourselves. With AI, you already know it. It's the second, more than anything, but specifically with teaching, it's the second revolution, and even stronger than video training, because even a book is somewhat similar to video, but video is a really huge improvement. AI has allowed me, and is starting to allow us, and we're going to be at the front of this, to duplicate the tutoring experience. So just like video can take what I'm telling you and make it accessible anytime, AI training, well made, can copy the way we make it individual tutoring with me. So, one of the biggest challenges when I teach is that maybe 20 to 30% of your time is with me. And then 70% of the time is by yourself, working, practicing. But now we get to actually monitor and control that so that it's more effective for you to improve. So what I've done in the course is, when you register for this, I'm going to show you, as I said, I hope you don't mind, but I'm super excited to share this with you. But when you register for TOEFL Max Writing, right, because that's all we have right now for the writing, and I want you to combine that with the Gold course. When you land on the first page, the first thing you do is you take the practice test. So this practice test, you get your score within about 48 hours or so. But the idea is that you'll immediately know how you started. Once you've finished submitting your score, your essay, you simply click next, and you're taken through the basics of the TOEFL writing section so that you know what to study, you know what's covered. I'm going to scroll all the way down. You continue by understanding what to master. So you get an overview of all the things that are required for you to memorize and have in your head. They should look familiar from our class. before you take your TOEFL so that you can really perform well. So this organizes your mind. So as we start to study in detail, you know that all the details support a higher overall score. So that's all you do. This is the course. You read, you complete, you click next. Now, here's the biggest thing. This is what I'm so excited about because now we have our training sets, which combine AI training, which is tutoring with me. It's like minute by minute tutoring, video training, which we already know how powerful that is, and another practice test. So this has been creating dramatic improvement for students. The average student is improving 1.4 points with every test that they submit. And then Sanya is the AI writing auto renewable. You do have to subscribe to it every month. So yes, every month. Now, when we take this, so Sanya, hope this makes sense. We have our AI trainer. So what makes us different is we're not creating a general AI. It's not just kind of ChatGPT review my essay. So we spent the last year creating custom AI tutors that focus on one specific part of your writing that I would work with you on in tutoring so that you can improve. And this is how students are improving about every week or two, 1.4 points. And it's amazing because I get to tell you that down to the detail, 1.4 points. So something that usually takes students 1 month, sometimes two, we're seeing in 1, 2, 3 weeks. If you study the way I'm describing, it's going to change the way you write for the TOEFL and beyond. So as I scroll down, we've created 5 of these custom tutors, and we're going to add more. So the first one is actually concentrated on TOEFL writing question 1, introductory paragraphs. So you write better according to the feedback you saw today. Our second trainer is on writing question 1, body paragraphs. So how do you write every sentence in a way that develops the idea of the sentence before? So this guides you through a tutoring process, sentence by sentence, the same that would happen with me one-on-one. For writing question number 2, we train the 6 steps, what we just mastered together, the 6 steps in 8 minutes that you have to write. This AI is like me, tutoring you through mastering those 6 steps, giving you feedback as you go through it. And then our fourth trainer, this one I'm very proud of, because one of the biggest things that I always give feedback on, besides what I talked about before, is that our examples in writing question number 2 sometimes are disconnected with our reasons and our opinion. So it consistently lowers our score, even though we think we're following all the steps and strategy. This custom tutor is created to help you master your example, one of the toughest and most important parts of raising your score for writing question number 2. Now, this is pretty significant, right? But even when students complete this, the beauty is because we're monitoring your essays, every one that you submit, we notice the issues that come up. And one of the major issues that we saw was grammar. So one of the most powerful tutorings I do for grammar is here in this custom agent. So sentence by sentence, this is going to teach you all the major grammatical concepts to make sure that you're writing better sentences. So 5 custom AI tutors, and we're even coming up with more because I still see how we can improve. So I'm super excited. And after you finish the training with these tutors as explained, you have the video training that's made Noteful famous and is kind of what you're getting here with the classes. So you have video training, hours of video training to make sure that you understand that I'm still guiding you, that you're not disconnected with the TOEFL experience. You're getting more practice. You're putting everything together. And finally, another practice test. And this is how I get to see that you're improving. So after you complete the tutors, and the video training, you submit another test where you're scored with feedback within 48 hours that guarantees that you're improving essay by essay. And if you're not, you have the feedback that tells you exactly how to get better and what's holding you back. And so we have 6 of these training sets. So that means pretty much you don't have to worry about running out of tests. So it's what I've noticed that many of you want: test, training, test to confirm you've improved, training, test to confirm you improved, training, test to confirm you improved. So once more, we're going to finish because I've said enough. I hope I've made you excited. So 2 courses that I'd love for you to consider: the Gold course, online classes starting Monday, and especially for those of you who need help with writing, our TOEFL Max AI integrated writing. I think with that, we're guaranteed to get our dream score. So that was our training on question 1 and 2. These are the next step for us to conquer the TOEFL together, which we can. Study hard. I'm gonna go through here and double check any final questions that we have. Appreciate you, Marcelena. And then Iram, there are new changes to the TOEFL. We'll probably have a video about that coming up, but you can imagine all of our courses will be updated to the new TOEFL. We're going to talk about that soon. The the biggest changes to the TOEFL are in the way that the reading and listening, the way that you're going to proceed through those questions, but the overall structure, format, timing, and skills necessary stay the same. It's just that time management strategy is going to change for the reading and listening. And of course, everything will be adapted to that. And let's see here. All right, everybody. So it was a pleasure. You now know how to continue to work together. This video would be, or recording will be uploaded for you to review as long as you need. Good job. Good work studying hard on Saturday morning. Hope to see you all on Monday, and hope to see all of your essays via TOEFL Max as well. So it was a pleasure. Stay strong. Until the next live. Bye bye, everybody. Good work today.